Everybody say ISPON.
Hello, I'm Engineer Timothy Iwagu, the National President of Institute of Safety Professionals of Nigeria, ISPON. Did you know it is illegal to practice as a safety professional without being registered with ISPON? Yes, it is. So, if you are a safety professional who is passionate about creating a safer Nigeria, register with ISPON today. You will gain access to professional development opportunities, networking, and up-to-date industry best practices. In the same vein, individuals and corporate organizations should ensure they verify every ISPON certificate presented to them. Also, watch out for scammers and forgers who use the name of the institute to offer training and issue fake certificates. For more information, visit www.ispon.gov.ng or call 0806 031 4610.
Institute of Safety Professionals of Nigeria. Everything we do is to keep everybody safe. ISPON.
My name is Ita Benson. I'm the state coordinator for ISPON Akwa Ibom State Branch. I want to use the opportunity to welcome each and every one of us for this technical session, which is long overdue for people who are passionate about all what is happening and what should be of ISPON. We have a good house here, and I want to encourage everybody to stay put so that we can share knowledge and ideas on the way forward and how to build ISPON to what it's supposed to be according to the objective of ISPON in the ISPON House. I want to officially use this opportunity to thank each and every one of us for what we have done for the Institute in one way or the other. We really appreciate you. For the professional practice and management of safety in Nigeria, I know everybody is doing a whole lot. I must commend ISPON members who are driving this course. In a short while, I will hand over to my colleague, or in the other way, I will hand over to the technical team to pilot this session so that we can go to the business of the day. I expect us to be calm, coordinate ourselves so that we can really learn and ask questions when necessary. Thank you so very much.
Thank you,
Hello,
Mr. Ita Benson, for the introduction. Good evening once again, everyone. It's nice to have us together on this wonderful ISPON platform. My name is Olayinka Fashosi. My colleague from Akwa Ibom has just done an introduction for us. I am also the state coordinator for this great institute here in Rivers State Branch. Before I continue, I'd like to use the opportunity to acknowledge the presence of the registrar of the institute, Dr. Mrs. Esther Williams, who has just connected. Dr. Williams, we're happy to have you. At the right time, we'll also call you up to address us in this session. We are pleased to have you, Dr. Esther Williams. Thank you so much for joining. And I'm looking forward to some other ISPON officials. Please, if you are an ISPON official, kindly use your real name in this session so that we can properly recognize you. I'm seeing someone that looks like Imo State Coordinator, but the name is not complete. All right, so I don't want to recognize someone else in your place, Imo State Coordinator. If you are listening, apologies. Please use your correct names so that we can properly recognize you. All right, so without wasting much of our time, once again, Olayinka Fashosi here from Rivers State Branch. I'll be talking to us on the topic today, Understanding ISPON Regulations I, 2024.
Hello, good evening, everyone. Yinka. Hello.
So much, Dr. Daniels. So I'll just take a few minutes to address your concern before we proceed. Once again, apologies for not recognizing you. That was why I encouraged everybody to use their full name. I actually saw Dr. Daniel on this meeting, but you can agree, sir, there are a lot of Dr. Daniels in Nigeria and outside Nigeria. So there was no way for me to know that you are the particular Dr. Daniel. So once again, Dr. Daniel Thomas is one of the governing board members of the Institute of Safety Professionals of Nigeria. And then secondly, regarding the issue of the regulations, of course, the regulation was long submitted to the governing board, reviewed by the governing board and approved. And it has long been on the ISPON website. Members of the Institute have access to it for several months now. So it's not a new document in the Institute. Maybe because of your busy schedule, sir, you have not been able to follow up, but you can also get in touch with the registrar and then the president of the Institute for further information on this. But the document was signed by the registrar and the president several months ago for implementation. And that's why we are discussing it today. So it has been a public document, not just today, for a long time. Thank you so much for that feedback, Dr. Danny Thomas. So without wasting further time, we will continue now to share what we have prepared for us today, which is titled Understanding ISPON Regulations I, 2024. So once again, I am Olayinka Fashusi, and I'll be taking this session. I have the approval of the governing board through the president and the registrar, who is currently in attendance, and we will be sharing what this regulation contains and what is expected of us to make it work. The long title is ISPON Regulations I, General Provisions for Safety Management in Nigeria, 2024. ISPON Regulations I, General Provisions for Safety Management in Nigeria, and short title is ISPON Regulations I, 2024. As we all know, for those who are ISPON members and are visitors today, the Institute of Safety Professionals of Nigeria, ISPON, is a regulatory body for the practice of safety management in Nigeria, as established by the Institute of Safety Professionals of Nigeria Act 2024. That's generally a background about the Institute. We have an act which we simply call ISPON Act 2014, which gives the Institute powers to regulate practice of safety in Nigeria and set standards. The objectives of ISPON include, number one, to organize and provide professional training in the area of safety management. So anything that has to do with safety training and certification in Nigeria, that is within the objectives of the Institute as established by the law. In collaboration with relevant government agencies, set standards of practice and determine the knowledge and skills to be acquired by persons seeking to register and practice as safety professionals, and to improve on such standards from time to time, and to do all such things as may be necessary to promote the advancement of safety profession in both the public and private sector of the economy. All right, so today we'll be talking to basically two types of people, or two categories of people. We have the safety professionals and we have the safety practitioners. We'll look at what the regulations has to inform us relating to how these have been defined. But particularly, the safety professional is defined in Section 16 of the ISPON Act 2014. And by that section 16, I read, a safety professional is any person qualified in an engineering discipline, occupational health sciences, environmental sciences, or other scientist or specialist in a related discipline with an acceptable qualification, who has acquired knowledge in the practice of safety management and whose name is in the register of the Institute. So to summarize that, you have to be qualified, you have to be competent as a safety professional in Nigeria. And for you to also define yourself as a safety professional, your name must be in the register of the institute. The law requires that the ISPON maintains a register of safety professionals in Nigeria. So if your name is in that register, it means that you're qualified to use that title safety professional in Nigeria. Functions and powers of ISPON. We can look at Section 3 of the ISPON Act. I encourage us, for those who don't have the ISPON Act already, we have shared it on various platforms. Please try to get a copy, even the electronic copy of it. It's available online. You can get a copy and look at it. It's your right, and it's your working tool so that you can work within the provisions of the law anytime. The ISPON has the functions to conduct examinations and award certificates and diplomas, as well as advise employers on matters relating to qualifications for the practice of safety management in Nigeria. So first thing we see is that ISPON has a power, ISPON has a duty to advise employers on matters relating to qualifications for the practice of safety management in Nigeria. This advice can come in the course of maybe, for example, defining qualifications or requirements for employment relating to safety or other matters. So as far as safety is involved, ISPON can advise the employer. Conduct research into all aspects of safety management, organize lectures, seminars, workshops, and otherwise provide training for persons aspiring to qualify and practice as safety professionals, establish and maintain lists of persons registered as safety professionals in Nigeria, and publish from time to time those so registered, perform such other functions as may be necessary for the advancement of the institute and the safety management profession, and so on and so forth. Then we have the item number I, in collaboration with relevant agencies of government, regulate the practice of safety management in Nigeria. This ISPON has been doing already. We already collaborating with, for example, security agencies, Nigerian police, and so on and so forth, that can help us enforce this type of regulations and other standards that the institute may present to the industry from time to time. So in the next few minutes, we will be discussing properly the contents of the ISPON Regulations I, which is the General Provisions for Safety Management in Nigeria 2024, shortened as ISPON Regulations I 2024. Interpretation. In this regulation, we have certain things that have been clarified for the purpose of understanding and professional interpretation. If there's any subject that has been defined in the ISPON Act itself, the definition remains as defined by the Act. Other matters that are not defined in the Act, the regulations also has attempted to define them for the purpose of implementation in the industry. So in these regulations, ISPON Act 2024 means the Institute of Safety Professionals of Nigeria Act 2014 rather, I beg your pardon, 2014 Act number 2. So when we have ISPON Act 2014, we're talking of the Institute of Safety Professionals of Nigeria Act 2014 Act number 2. That's the act that established the Institute of Safety Professionals of Nigeria. Then the governing board means the governing board, and that is how the Act defines it as well, also called the board of the Institute of Safety Professionals of Nigeria. In this regulation as well, safety practice means the design, application, or implementation of safety policies, procedures, protocols, rules, regulations, etc., for the purpose of ensuring safety of life, asset, or environments. It also means the application of knowledge, skills, or experience to enhance safety management or implement safety policies and objectives in an organization. Safety practice also means taking actions or doing such things relating to the day-to-day implementation of safety policies in an organization. In addition to that, safety practice also refers to a set of coordinated activities or series of actions carried out to actualize specific objectives in any field of safety management, or working as a safety officer in any field or division of safety management in an organization. So what it means is that if your activity relates to any of these definitions in Nigeria, we'll say you are doing safety practice. A safety practitioner means an individual who is trained and certified competent by the Institute of Safety Professionals of Nigeria to practice safety management, whose job description is to ensure safety at work by using his knowledge, skills, and experience to support his or her employer. What that part of that definition is saying is that if you're using your skills, experience, and knowledge to ensure safety at work while working for your employer, then you are a safety practitioner. A safety practitioner is also a person who is involved in the day-to-day implementation of safety policies and procedures, typically ensuring compliance with relevant local, national, and international standards while working under the guidance of a safety professional. What this also is trying to tell us is that it is possible to be a safety practitioner and not a professional. In that case, if the person is not a professional yet, the regulation requires the person must work under supervision of a safety professional. Such a person must be assigned safety roles below the rank of a safety supervisor and must be assigned under direct supervision of a safety professional. So if there is somebody who is practicing safety, now that will call him a safety practitioner, who is not yet a professional, the person cannot take the role of a safety supervisor. And that makes sense. Safety supervisor is not a role, it's not a position to be taken for granted. So that level of responsibility is designated for a safety professional. A safety professional is as defined in Section 16 of ISPON Act 2014, just as we've looked at that already. Designated safety officer. This means a safety professional who is assigned by the employer to directly oversee the safety responsibility over an operation or a task. Now that's important. A safety professional is a designated safety officer is a safety professional who is assigned by the employer to directly oversee the safety responsibility over an operation or a task. So if the employer has put you as a professional on that job to oversee the safety of that job, of that operation, then you'll be described as a designated safety officer. The designated safety officer is accountable for the safety of the job. Yeah, we know that in safety management systems, we talk about responsibilities and accountabilities. And if you have been designated on the job, you are also accountable for that job. Why the overall responsibilities for safety management lies on the employer. Safety policy means a formal document or statement issued by an organization that outlines its commitments to maintaining a safe work environment. That's a safety policy. Safety policy also means a statement that provides the framework for how the organization intends to manage health and safety risks and ensure the well-being of its employees, other persons, and protection of assets. That's what safety policy means with respect to these regulations. Now we have other relevant policies. Other relevant policies means all other policies that the organization should put in place to ensure safety and maintain compliance. This may be advised by ISPON or a safety professional, having consideration for the operations of the organization. Just for an illustration, a company may already have their health, safety, and environmental policies spelled out, but because of the nature of the organization's operations, they may have a separate policy that addresses maybe spill prevention, for example. That's like oil spill prevention. They may have another policy for journey management, or they may have no smoking and drugs and alcohol policy, and so on and so forth. This can be under other policies. So any policy that can help the organization to safely deliver their operations, we can have as many of such policies as under other relevant policies. Compliance audits in this regulation means a systematic review and evaluation of an organization's adherence to regulatory guidelines, industry standards, internal policies, and other legal requirements. Okay. The purpose of a compliance audit is to verify and ensure that the organization is operating within applicable legal and regulatory framework, right? So there is usually a standard that we want to audit the organization against. ISPON has the audit standard as well, that when we want to audit, we can use that as the baseline, as the basis for our audit. So that's compliance audit. Safety inspection means systematic examination of a workplace, equipment or processes to identify potential hazards and ensure compliance with safety standards and regulations. The main goal of a safety inspection is to prevent accident, injuries, and illnesses by proactively identifying and addressing unsafe conditions and unsafe practices. And that's very important. A safety inspection is an active, proactive approach to spot those hazards and address them before they cause ugly incidents. We don't want those incidents happening while we're working. So safety inspection programs can be put in place. Another thing we want to define is safety competence. Safety competence in this regulation means to possess the ability to apply knowledge, skills, training, and experience necessary to effectively identify, assess, and manage safety risks in a specific context or environment as certified by ISPON. So it means that safety competency or safety competence is not generic, it's not open forever. We must define within the context by which that person is safety competent. By an illustration, we have someone who might have studied maybe microbiology, for example, and after that had acquired safety qualifications, professional certifications, and so on and so forth. And if this person is put on a construction site, he or she may not be defined as safety competent because the person may not even understand construction activities, operations. They may not understand construction hazards very well. They may not understand how to read drawings and interpret them relating to what is happening on site. So by that, if the person is the designated safety officer on that job, we will not define them as safety competent. Rather, we want to have somebody who has a good grasp of the operation and then has the safety qualification to carry out that responsibility. So within the context under review, we must ensure that the person on the job is safety competent. Recognized hazard means a known or identifiable source of potential harm or danger in the workplace that has been identified by employers, employees, safety professionals, or regulatory authorities. A hazard that is known to pose a significant risk to the health and safety of individuals in a specified environment or under a given condition. So generally speaking, when we talk of recognized hazards, we're saying that your organization is already aware of this hazard, whether by different hazard identification methods, whether by feedbacks from the workers, whether by expert opinion, and so on and so forth. But now the organization already knows that this hazard exists, and we call that a recognized hazard. When it comes to regulations and standards, we want to define what falls within the scope of work, for example, and that is where things like work-related injury or illness comes in. Because when you are making your safety report, you want to be sure that what you are reporting is something that is falling within the scope of your organization. If it is not within the control of your operation, it is not within your care as an organization, then you may not have to report it in your safety report. So a work-related injury or illness means any injury or illness that a person suffered due to exposure to work or work condition. Any such existing condition which is made worse by a result of work. Just to elaborate on this, if we have a worker who was healthy and he comes to work and becomes sick at work because of interaction with the job, then we call that sickness or illness work-related. If it's injured, we call it work-related injury. Now, somebody may be sick before he gets to job. Ordinarily, that will not be work-related because it has nothing to do with the job. But if the employer allows him to proceed to work and then the job makes the sickness or injury to become worse, it has automatically become work-related in that process. Control measures means any or combination of the 5 hazard control methods, which include elimination, substitution, engineering, administrative, or personal protective equipment. That's what control methods or control measures referred to in this regulation. And when ISPON comes to your facility, for example, for enforcement of these regulations, and they are talking of control measures with respect to a particular hazard or risk, they're actually checking whether you have applied the relevant controls or a combination of these controls to mitigate or eliminate the risk. ALAP. ALAP means as low as reasonably practicable, describing a risk reduction level at which objectively assessed the time, trouble, difficulty, and cost of further reduction measures become unreasonably disproportionate to the additional risk reduction obtained. In summary, we are saying that when you are reducing your risks to ALAP, right, you are reducing it to a level that when you get to that level, further attempts, further efforts to reduce it further will not yield significant reduction. In quotes, we are saying that at that point, it may amount to like a waste of time trying to put in more money, put in more technology, put in more resources, and so on and so forth to reduce it, because the result you get will not be proportionate to the effort you are putting it into that. And that's why we define it as a level objectively assessed. Every professional who understands what that risk control entails will also be able to follow the path of risk reduction you have put in place and agree that you have gotten to risk reduction. And that is why we don't define ALAP as the minimum risk, because minimum risk is subjective, while ALAP is objective. All right, safety violation occurs when an individual or organization fails to comply with established safety regulations, standards, policies, procedures, or requirements, whether due to ignorance, negligence, or willful disregard for safety requirements. So we'll talk of safety violations if there is a deviation from the expected safety behavior. There's a compliance requirement and you're not working in line with that requirement, you are violating. Abatement action means to take action or apply necessary controls to eliminate or mitigate an identified risk. So if there's a risk, what you want to do is to take necessary action to either mitigate or eliminate that risk. That action in this regulation is called abatement action. The action required to close out a violation. If there is a compliance visit to your facility to enforce ISPON Regulations I, 2024, for example, and the compliance team cited your organization for safety violation, they will require to take certain action so that that violation will be closed out. That action will be defined as well as abatement action. In these regulations, there are three types of violations. We have the first violation, we have repeat violation, and then willful violation. First violation means that the violation occurs for the first time. So there's a compliance visit, and the compliance officers observed safety violations. If that is the first time you are cited for that violation, it will be recorded as a first violation. A repeat violation means that the same violation occurs at another time after last closeout of abatement action. And what this means is that maybe on 20th of October 2024, there was a compliance visit to your facility and you were cited for a particular violation. At that time, it was first violation, and the compliance officers recommended abatement action for you to close it out. And you closed out, actually. You closed out, but you allowed the violation to happen again. When the compliance officers visit your facility and they see the violation again, it will be recorded as a repeat violation, meaning that it was first cited the first time, you closed out, but it happened again. Willful violation, on the other hand, means that the same violation occurs the second consecutive time, or is repeated consecutively without closeout of the previous abatement action. So in summary, a willful violation is something that the compliance officers are convinced that you are doing deliberately. It's a type of deliberate violation. And this can happen the last time they visited your facility. they cited this violation and they told you to close out, and you did not close out, on the date of the next visit, they come to your facility and they still see the same violation, which you did not close out when it was cited, it will be recorded as a willful violation. Or a violation that you initially closed out, when they come to visit you again, they see it again. At this time, they are convinced that you have done it willfully. It means that you have everything within your control to ensure that this violation does not occur. Things like that will be recorded as willful violations. So these are the type of these are the three types of violations that you will be cited for with respect to ISPON Regulations I, 2024. Other persons. In these regulations, other persons means other persons who may be affected by the work being done, even though they are not directly part of the work. Let me give an instance. Sometimes ago, ISPON received a complaint from Lagos State. There was a construction in a residential environment. It was, I think, 3 or 4 story building. I can't remember exactly. But while they were working there, construction materials were falling to another compound. Sometimes you have a piece of blocks pulling out maybe during construction and then falling over to someone else's compound. Anybody in that compound, that residential house, will be defined as other persons, because that construction activity can actually affect them by causing serious injuries or even fatality. Employer means someone or an entity that has entered into a contract of employment, formally or informally, to employ other persons as a worker, either for himself or for the service of other person. Basically, if you have engaged someone to do an operational activity for you, by this regulation, you have become an employer, and the responsibility of employers now lie on you. Let me give an example. In your own house, you have issues with your electrical lines, and you have called a maintenance technician to come and repair. The guy is working in your house. At that point, by this regulation, you have become the employer of that technician. His safety, while it's in your house, lies within your responsibility. So it does not define only employer in the organized sector alone. Both formal and informal sectors, if you have engaged someone to do something for you, by this regulation, their safety responsibilities on you will define you as the employer. Now, part 2 of the ISPON Regulations I, 2024, part 2 defines the powers of ISPON to provide safety regulations, standards and guidelines, etc., and to enforce compliance. The regulation we are discussing today was made because the law empowers the institute to make these regulations. And we can make specific references to Section 2B of ISPON Act 2014, which provides that in collaboration with relevant government agencies, ISPON should set standards of practice and determine the knowledge and skills to be acquired by persons seeking to register and to practice as safety professionals, and to improve on such standards from time to time. This provision actually empowers ISPON to set standards of practice in Nigeria and specify qualifications for practice in safety management. That is part of powers to regulate. Section 2B of ISPON Act 2014. We also make references to sections 2C and section 3E of the same acts we're discussing. This empowers the institute to do all things such as may be necessary to promote the advancement of safety profession in both the public and private sectors of the economy. If you look at ISPON Act Section 2C, under the objectives of the institute, you'll see that the law empowers the institute to do anything that is relevant, necessary to advance the safety profession. And part of that is providing regulations for the institute. Still discussing the powers of ISPON to make these regulations, we can also look at Section 3A of the ISPON Act 2014, which empowers ISPON to conduct examinations and award certificates and diplomas, as well as advise employers on matters relating to qualifications for the practice of safety management in Nigeria. Now, pursuant to this provision, persons seeking to be employed for a role in safety management or already working in any field of safety management must satisfy requirements that are set out by the institute. That's part of regulation. If ISPON by law has the power to advise your employers on the qualifications to demand from you, it means that when you are working or when you are planning to work, you must plan to meet these regulations as spelled out by the institute. Section 3I provides that in collaboration with relevant agencies of government, ISPON should regulate the practice of safety management in Nigeria. This one is under Section 3I that we have already looked at during our introduction. This, of course, is why the Institute has partnered with the Nigerian Police Force to ensure that we have this type of regulations coming into force and properly enforced to make sure that Nigerians are safe. Pursuant to this provision, it is the duty of ISPON to collaborate with relevant government agencies to ensure compliance with regulations made by the Institute, policies, guidelines, and other regulatory requirements. Further, it empowers ISPON to regulate all persons and organizations practicing safety management in Nigeria, whether or not such persons or individuals have been registered. You see, we defined safety practitioners and safety professionals. As a safety practitioner, you must obtain the minimum qualification that the institute has described or prescribed for what you are doing. That means a safety practitioner is under the regulations of the institute, because what you are doing, whether in the public or private sector of Nigeria's economy, so far it affects safety or relates to safety, you are under the control of the institute. For anyone, including corporate entities, to practice safety management in Nigeria, the requirements set out by ISPON in terms of training, skills, experience, and technical knowledge, etc., must be satisfied. These are legal requirements that the employers are also encouraged to be aware of. Part 4, Committee on Safety Ethics, Compliance, and Enforcement. So sometimes in what date was that? Sometimes in 2022, I can't remember specifically the dates. The governing board established a committee that is called the National Committee on Safety Ethics, Compliance, and Enforcement. National Committee on Safety Ethics, Compliance, and Enforcement. The National Committee on Safety Ethics, Compliance, and Enforcement was established by the governing board to strengthen the administration of the institute in line with Institute of Safety Professionals of Nigeria Act 2014. Here that we call the Act. So the main reason why this committee was set up is to strengthen the hand of the governing board in delivering their duties as required by the law. This committee is in line with the objectives of the institute as provided in Section 2C. It is one of the other things necessary that the institute can do to make sure that safety becomes a point that we are proud of in Nigeria. The functions and powers of the institute to regulate the practice of safety management in Nigeria pursuant to Section 3I of the Act. So the establishment of the National Committee on Safety Ethics, Compliance, and Enforcement is a legal requirement that the institute has fulfilled within the powers and objectives the Act defined. The mission of the National Committee on Safety Ethics, Compliance, and Enforcement states, the committee is established to ensure strict compliance with the provisions of ISPON Act 2014 by enforcing safety regulations and standards. So this type of regulation we are discussing, for example, the National Committee on Safety Ethics, Compliance, and Enforcement has the power, the mandate to enforce it and ensure that it comes to stay. Prosecuting offenders, and by providing public awareness, engaging stakeholders, guiding employers, and providing support for safety professionals and practitioners. Over time, this one has been missing. The direct support for safety professionals and practitioners has been missing. But through this committee, professionals can now have the support they need to confidently deliver their duty as professionals. Oftentimes, you see a professional, he knows the right thing, but because it's under the control of the employers and it's at the employer's mercy, he can't do much. But when we have a regulatory body like ISPON that gives backing to this type of professionals and ensure that they are not victimized for doing the right thing, I think Nigeria can be safer. And that's one of the duties of the National Committee on Safety Ethics, Compliance and Enforcement. Duties. The duties of the committee include to enforce compliance with the Institute of Safety Professionals of Nigeria Act 2014, to enforce compliance with safety regulations, policy standards, codes of practice, ethics, and other provisions of ISPON regarding the practice of safety management in Nigeria, to enforce decision of the Safety Professionals Disciplinary Committee in line with Section 13 of the ISPON Act as established, and other relevant committees established by the governing board. Right. So in Section 13 of the ISPON Act, we have the Safety Professionals Disciplinary Committee. Now, this committee, their duty is to investigate complaints, petitions, issues that have been brought relating to professional practice, safety practice in Nigeria, and make recommendations to the governing board on what they think the governing board should do after the investigation. Now, the report of the Safety Professionals Disciplinary Committee the recommendations will be enforced, will be implemented by the approval of the governing board, or rather by this committee through the approval of the governing board. So once the governing board accepts or approves the report of the disciplinary committee, the National Committee on Safety Ethics, Compliance and Enforcement will now take it up for enforcement. And that takes us to number 4 of the duties, to liaise with the legal team of the institute and coordinate with relevant external enforcement authorities or agencies in enforcing the provisions of the Institute's Act, safety regulations, policies, standards, code of practice, ethics, and other provisions of ISPON regarding the practice of safety management in Nigeria. So we can see why the safety committee was established. The National Committee on Safety Ethics, Compliance and Enforcement. We can now see why they were established. Subject to the approval of the board, the National Committee on Safety Standards, on Safety Ethics, rather, Compliance and Enforcement is established. And they can also establish state committees, which will now form as an extension of their activities. So we have the National Committee. We can also have the State Committee with the approval of the board. The National Committee on Safety Ethics can also establish committees at state levels to provide support for the institute. Engage safety professionals as compliance officers to enforce compliance across various states in Nigeria. So the National Committee on Safety Ethics, Compliance and Enforcement can also engage more safety professionals who have the competence and capacity to provide support in ensuring compliance with regulations and standards across Nigeria. Provide safety awareness relevant for the purpose of driving safety compliance. So from time to time, the National Committee on Safety Ethics, Compliance and Enforcement will also continue to deliver awareness programs, campaigns to ensure that the public, the professionals are properly informed of the happenings and requirements for their practice. All right, so duties and powers of State Committee on Safety, Ethics, Compliance, and Enforcement. The State Committee will provide support in executing the duties of the National Committee on Safety, Ethics, Compliance, and Enforcement at the state level. So those duties we have just discussed, if there is a state committee in Rivers State, for example, the State Committee on Safety, Ethics, Compliance, and Enforcement will do these things in Rivers State in collaboration with the National Committee. So there is going to be a synergy, and the whole thing is designed for efficiency. The State Committee on Safety, Ethics, Compliance, and Enforcement shall periodically or shall give periodic reports of compliance activities within the states to the National Committee on Safety, Ethics, Compliance, and Enforcement. Shall make recommendations on compliance requirements, penalties, appeals, and similar matters. Part 5 of this ISPON Regulations I, 2024. Part 5 is addressing regulation of hierarchies in safety management profession. Regulation of hierarchies in safety management profession. For the purpose of professional ethics and orderliness in the profession, the following regulations shall apply. Number 1, the Institute recognizes seniority in membership categories such that the most senior professional membership category is Fellow of Institute of Safety Professionals of Nigeria, FISPN, followed by Member, Institute of Safety Professionals of Nigeria, and followed by Associate, Institute of Safety Professionals of Nigeria, Graduates, and Student Member. That is the order of hierarchy. And for professional conduct, for ethics' sake, we respect this hierarchy. Pursuant to number 1 above, an organization shall observe membership grades in the placement of safety professionals for roles in safety management. Consequently, a lower membership grade shall not be placed above a higher membership grade for job roles or employments in any field of safety management. So it will not be proper by the provisions of the regulations that we get to an organization, we now see the safety manager. He is a member of the institute, but his grade is MISPN. And on the same facility, we see the safety supervisor, who is a fellow. Of course, we know that the member, MISPN, is lower than the fellow. But in this case, we are now seeing that the member who is lower is now taking the higher role. It is not correct and will not accept it. What the employer should do at that point is that if the person who is having the fellow membership grade is not competent enough to handle that job role, instead of how do I put it now, overturning the grading system of the institute, they should look for another fellow who is competent to do their job and do the assignment that way. Pursuant to section 1 above, okay, a person who is not a member of the institute shall not be placed above a member of the institute for job roles or employment in any field of safety management, even if the grade of the person is a graduate. A graduate is a status in the institute. Someone who is not a member at all can never have a role higher than that graduate in that organization. Again, if you think that the person who is not a member is more competent than the person who is a graduate member, then look for another member who is higher than the graduate and put the person in charge. All these things are necessary for orderliness in professional safety practice in Nigeria. Part 6, duties and powers of compliance officers. Compliance officers are the professionals that will help us go to different organizations to ensure that the provisions of regulations and standards for safety management are being observed, are being kept, and complied with. Compliance officers will include safety auditors, inspectors, and any other safety professional or government enforcement officers approved for that purpose by the governing board. Now, this is very important because we originally designed compliance officers for ISPON professionals, but by the provisions of Section 3I of our institute that says we should collaborate with relevant government agencies, you may not have a police officer who is not a member of the institute, but because he works in an agency that is collaborating with an institute, he can be assigned to provide support for our compliant officers. So if he joins the team to visit your facility, all of them will be defined as compliant officers. Duties and powers of safety auditors. Number 1, to verify compliance with ISPON safety standards and audit requirements, identify non-conformances in implementation of company's HSE management system, evaluate the adequacy and stability of the loss prevention and loss control programs of the organization, evaluate the adequacy and suitability of the fire prevention program, issue violation notices to employers and recommend penalties for offenses, recommend preventive and corrective actions for employers, specify timelines to close out issues and observations, make recommendations to the National Committee on Safety, Ethics, Compliance and Enforcement for further investigations, give order for immediate arrest of offenders where necessary. So it means that by these provisions of these regulations, an ISPON auditor who is part of this compliance process can order an arrest on site if there's a serious violation, or if within his discretion he feels this person needs to be arrested. And we have collaboration with Nigerian police to make this process seamless for those who are empowered. We have the people we also call the safety inspectors. Their duties include to promote good safety culture at workplace. Pursuant to Section 2C of ISPON Act, they can enter any facility to carry out inspection for safety compliance. They can make recommendations to employers regarding workplace safety improvement. They can also make recommendations to the National Committee on Safety, Ethics, Compliance and Enforcement for further investigations and regarding improvement of safety standards and regulations. They can assess employers' programs and strategies on how to reduce on-the-job hazards and prevent injuries, illnesses, and death in the workplace. The safety inspectors can enforce compliance with safety standards and regulations and other relevant provisions based on observations during an inspection. They can recommend the facility or compliance. They can recommend the facility for compliance safety audits. So if they are carrying out inspection on the facility and they feel the scope is beyond the inspection, an audit is required, they can also recommend that audit to the institute. They can issue violation notices to employers and recommend penalties for offenses. Those are the duties of the safety inspectors as part of the compliance officers. Now, Part 7 defines the duties and responsibilities of employers and employees. Duties and responsibilities of employers and employees. Right? For the sake of time, I understand I am very fast in this session. But what I will advise us to do is to visit the ISPON website. We already made the link public several months ago. You can visit the ISPON website, download a copy of these regulations, and then go through by yourself. Right? If you have questions after that, you can use the contact information on the ISPON website. That's www.ispon.gov.ng, www.ispon.gov.ng. Visit the website, download a copy of the regulations, use the contact information there to reach back to the institute for your feedbacks or with your feedbacks and comments. Pursuant to Section 16 of the Institute of Safety Professionals of Nigeria Act 2014, a safety professional is defined as any person qualified in an engineering discipline, occupational health sciences, environmental sciences, or other scientists or specialists in the related discipline, and so on and so forth. And then the person must have acceptable qualification, and the person must have acquired knowledge in the practice of safety management. Lastly, their name must be in the register of the institute. We are recalling this definition because employers need to know this. They need to know who they are engaging on the job. They need to know whether the person is a professional or not. Pursuant to Section 3A, which empowers the institute to advise employers on matters relating to qualifications for the practice of safety management in Nigeria, the institute further makes the following provisions to guide employers and workers as part of promoting the safety management profession. ISPON understands that specific duties of safety personnel may vary from organizations. Therefore, it is the duty of the employer to ensure that persons working under them are safety competent and are able to deliver the responsibility assigned to them. This is a key responsibility of the employer. It is their duty to ensure that the persons working under them are safety competent and they can deliver the job assigned to them safely. A safety professional shall, if required by his or employer, deliver or facilitate in-house training to promote knowledge and awareness in safety management. In-house training shall be used by the employer alone and shall not be acceptable as a professional qualification in safety management. For those of us who are already in the industry, we almost agree with this one. You do in-house training to promote safety consciousness, safety awareness, and build your team capacity. That cannot be misunderstood to professional qualification, even if it was delivered by a safety professional. The professional qualification is independently delivered by the institute or accredited training providers. Having the necessary approval and accreditation from ISPON for such topics, which they have been pre-qualified to instruct, they can deliver safety training for the purpose of professional certification. So which means a safety professional can also be a safety trainer if he has been pre-qualified, if he has been certified competent to deliver such topics. They can carry out HSC audits and inspection, and so on and so forth. We can see investigating incidents, advising employers, prepare, review, or approve safety reports, carry out this and that, and so on and so forth. Now, I'll go back to number 5 particularly. The safety professional is empowered by these regulations to advise his employers on issues relating to safety management, because the institute is empowered by law to advise the employers on these issues. Now, a safety professional under the institute is further empowered by the institute to advise the employers, because this person is competent. This person can give an advice to promote safety management in that organization. And it is the duty of the employer to consider this advice when they are making decisions. The safety professional shall promote the objectives of ISPON in Nigeria. It is one of their duties to promote the objectives of the institute and perform other functions in line with general policy guidelines of the institute. General duties of workers and employees. All workers are responsible for protecting their own health and safety at work. This is a primary responsibility, your primary duty of care that you owe yourself. You must protect yourself while you are working. To minimize the risk to health and safety, a worker or an employee is required to cooperate with the employer in identifying hazards and managing risks at work. Seek clarifications, guidance, and instruction from safety professionals if in doubt of safety on the job. It's their duty to stop operation and report to the supervisor in the occurrence of a hazard which poses immediate significant risk to people, asset, or environment. So the worker, the employee, is empowered by these regulations to stop an operation where there's an immediate risk to life, to the asset, or to the environment. To comply with all policies, procedures, and instructions in relation to work, health, and safety, to properly wear and use all personal protective equipment required for the job. It is not the duty of the worker, now spelled out by this regulation, that they must wear the PPE that the employer has provided for them. Cooperate with ISPON Compliance Officers during audit and inspection. Duties and responsibilities of employers. Pursuant to Section 2, Sections 3A, 3E, and 3I of ISPON Act 2014, and in line with the International Labour Organization's framework and fundamental principles and rights at work, the Institute requires all employers in Nigeria to, number 1, comply with all regulations, guidelines, directives, and other policies issued by ISPON to promote the practice of safety management at the workplace in line with the relevant sections, Section 2C, 3E, and 3I of ISPON Act 2014. The employer also is required to provide a workplace free from serious recognized hazards and comply with standards, policies, rules, regulations, etc., issued under the ISPON Act 2014, Factories Act 2004 amended, and other applicable safety regulations in Nigeria. Examine the workplace conditions to make sure they comply with these regulations and other applicable provisions of ISPON, the Factories Act, and other relevant safety regulations in Nigeria. Make sure employees have safe tools and equipment for work, and ensure the safe use of the tools and equipment at all times. These are the duties of the employer. Provide a safe equipment for work and ensure that the equipment are used safely by the workers. Use relevant color codes, posters, labels, or signs to warn employees and other persons of recognized or potential hazards. Establish or update safe operating procedures and communicate the same to employees using most appropriate means so that employees can safely carry out their jobs. Ensure that employees are safety competent and that they have obtained relevant safety training and certifications approved by ISPON. Assign designated safety officers to all safety critical operations. Pursuant to Section 2A and 3A of ISPON Act 2014, demand relevant certification of ISPON training where the worker is performing any role in safety management. It is the duty of the employer now to ensure that the worker has obtained, whether through the company or through the effort of the worker, the relevant ISPON qualification for what they are doing. Where the worker is to be employed for any role in safety management, ISPON membership certificate shall be required, because by law, the company or the employer is required to employ a safety competent person who is, in this context, a safety professional. And being a safety professional means that you are a member of ISPON, that your name is in the register of the institute. And that means you have a membership certificate, which the employer can ask you to present. Prepare and maintain up-to-date safety records, such as work-related injuries and illnesses, dangerous occurrences, etc., and make same available to ISPON immediately upon request. So you should prepare your safety statistics and keep it intact so that anytime ISPON requests for it, you can make it available upon request. Provide records of employees where required by ISPON for the purpose of investigations, audits, or other exercises to verify safety compliance. Provide names of safety personnel and their qualifications to ISPON compliance officers immediately upon request. The employer shall not discriminate against an employee who exercises their rights in line with ILO's framework of fundamental principles and rights at work, taking note that a safe and healthy working environment is a fundamental principle and right at work. So within this context, an employer shall not discriminate against an employee who is exercising his rights and in line with these provisions. The employer shall give unrestricted access to their facility for ISPON compliance officers to investigate, audit, inspect, or carry out other compliance activities and guide ISPON compliance officers safely within the facility. The employer shall post violation notices, recommendations, or penalties conspicuously at or near the facility involved as may be prescribed by the ISPON compliance officer, and leave such posting in place until the issue has been corrected and verified by ISPON compliance officer. So if you have been cited for a violation on an equipment, you will paste a copy of that violation on that equipment, and you will leave it there until the issue has been closed out and verified by ISPON compliance officer. The employer has the responsibility to correct cited violations by the deadline set in the violation form and submit requests for closure for ISPON to verify and close out the violations. Part 12, reporting safety concerns. Any individual or corporate entity in Nigeria shall be free to report safety concerns which they observe at the workplace or other places. Remember, ISPON is empowered to regulate safety in both the public and private sectors of Nigerian economy. It means that beyond your organization, ISPON has control to ensure there is safety. So if you have seen something in the public, maybe in the market, for example, that has put the people, the public at risk, you have the power now by this regulation to contact the institute and report the same to the institute for the institute to intervene. Where the organization responsible to take actions fails to immediately address the concerns, the concerned individual or corporate entity shall be at liberty to contact ISPON for advice. I'll give us an example. I will not mention the company name. One day I was just going about my activities and I got to a construction site and I saw that they were lifting some slabs and the lifting operation was not safe. I understood people were at risk. What I did was I intervened. I stopped the operation. I engaged the people on site and I told them what they should do. They did that and everybody was safe and I went my way. In that case, I did not need to contact ISPON because the management of that facility, they've done the correction immediately. But if I had told them what to do and they refuse or they fail to do it, or maybe they're arguing, I can now escalate the matter to the institute, which can prompt further investigation into that violation. A person or corporate entity who wishes to report a safety concern may request ISPON to treat him as anonymous if there is further concern about disclosing their identity. So you can report as anonymous. That means the institute will not disclose your identity. In Nigeria, we have held the concept of whistleblowers. Sometimes you never know who blew the whistle, but information has been passed. We can do the same in ISPON through anonymous reporting. In all cases, the identity of a person or corporate entity filing safety concern shall remain confidential if and when relating with the employer, unless where such person wishes to be disclosed. It is the duty of ISPON to protect the identity of the person who is giving them this type of information. But there could be some cases where the person says, you can mention my name and say, I was one who gave the information. At that case, the person has waived the right for confidentiality. Then the institute can use their discretion whether to disclose or not to disclose. 13, offenses, penalties, and appeals. Pursuant to Section 2C of the Institute of Safety Professions of Nigeria Act 2014, the following provisions are hereby made relating to offenses, penalties, and appeals in these regulations. Offenses and penalties. An individual or corporate entity who violates any of the provisions in these regulations is guilty of an offense and shall be liable to penalty. Such individual or corporate entity may be fined for a violation fee, which shall be advised by the compliance officers, and where applicable, be charged to the Federal High Court for trial and prosecution. Types of violation include first violation, repeat violation, and willful violation. We have discussed that before. A violation may be categorized as low, where the risk to life is low, moderate, where the risk to life is moderate, high, where the risk is high or it poses immediate serious danger to life, and lastly, extreme, where there is a risk or where the risk is extreme or there is high likelihood of fatality. And what it means is that all the violations that will be cited in the course of these compliance activities will be categorized, whether it has low severity, high, extreme, as the case may be. The categorization shall be based on a 5x5 risk assessment matrix provided by the institute to determine the risk. The violation fee for each violation shall be between 50,000 naira and 100,000 naira for individuals, and between 100,000 naira and 5 million naira for corporate entity, depending on the nature of the violation. An individual or corporate entity who is guilty of multiple violations may be charged separately for each of the violation. So if your facility has been visited and there are multiple violations, the compliance officer can give you separate penalties for each of the violations. Of course, it doesn't mean that all violations will result to penalties. There are some violations that may be minor and negligible, and within the discretion of the compliance officer, they can waive it and tell you to close it out. But failure to close it out when they have visited again for confirmation may now lead to serious violation for you. For a repeat violation, the penalty may be multiplied by the number of times the violation has occurred. For example, if the first penalty is 100,000 naira, penalty for the second repeat will be 200,000 naira. That's a factor of 2. Where the violation category is either low or moderate, failure to close out after 3 months shall automatically count as a repeat violation. So for a low violation or a moderate violation, the employer will have up to 3 months to close out. But if they don't close out after 3 months, automatically they will get a repeat violation. Failure to close out for violations categorized as high or extreme, failure to take abatement actions after 7 days will lead to a repeat violation if the violation poses immediate danger to life. And the repeat violation will apply after 30 days if there is no immediate danger to life. What this means is that for high risk for extreme violation or high violation, there are two things. One is if there is immediate danger to life, the company has within 7 days to take certain abatement actions, and if they fail, they'll be cited for repeat violation immediately. But if there is no immediate threat to life, they have up to 30 days to close out that violation, after which they'll be cited for repeat if they fail to take abatement action. In the event of a failure to take abatement action after a repeat violation, a willful violation shall apply. We already discussed that, right? And the penalty may be multiplied by 3 for low or moderate violations. So if there's a repeat, the employer can be fined for up to 3 times of their initial fine if it is a low or moderate violation, and by a factor of 4 or 5 for high and extreme respectively. And what this also means is that the institute, we know that there are some companies that have money. So if you tell them to pay 1 million naira as a fine, they can just throw it at your face and continue to leave the workplace disorganized and expose people to risk. For such people, for them to be even fined a 1 million naira, it means that the violation must have been a high or extreme violation. In that case, the next one, they can be multiplied by 4 or 5. So if 1 million does not make any impact on them, 5 million will definitely make some. And if the violation continues, of course, the compliance officer may, at his discretion, make an arrest of the offender if necessary, and further refer the violation to the legal department of the institute for prosecution. Violation fees shall be paid within 5 working days of receiving the violation notice, and the abatement action shall be completed within the recommended time, provided that the abatement action has been fully closed out within the specified period. An offender who failed to pay the violation fee within the 5 working days shall be required to make an entry at the Nigerian Police Force Division nearest to them. And after that, they shall willingly cease to operate until the violation fee is paid. So these penalties are not actually a way of exploiting or extorting money from the employer or from the industry. Rather, they are serving as cautions to remind the employer that safety is required and they have responsibilities when it comes to safety management under the law. That is why if they have managed to take the abatement action, the institute will not be angry with them, even if they have not paid their penalty. After the time to pay the penalty has elapsed, what the regulation requires is that they will by themselves go to the nearest police station and make an entry stating why they have not been able to pay. And as a way of the institute keeping an eye on them, they will voluntarily stop the activity for which they have been cited within that period until they make the payment. They will not be arrested. It's just a voluntary action they have to take. All right. Where there is an immediate high or extreme danger to life, the compliance officer may order the facility to cease operations immediately until abatement action is carried out. So there are cases where the compliance officer can tell them to stop operating immediately. And that was what I did when I visited the facility I just mentioned to us a few minutes ago. I told them to stop their operation because there was an immediate risk to life. And they took the abatement action and operation continues afterward. Appeals against penalties. An individual or corporate entity who feels the violation notice is a mistake or by their own objective consideration believes that they have not violated the provisions as cited by the compliance officer may file an appeal against such violations. And the appeal is intended to overturn the violation and penalty if there is merit in it. The compliance officers are human beings. Sometimes they may make wrong judgments of the situation, leading them to give you a citation, right? If your workers, if your team of experts also come in and say, no, we have not violated, and you make your case and it is reviewed by the institute, the initial violation that the institute has placed upon you will be overturned. An appeal shall be deemed valid if it is filed at the State Committee on Safety Ethics, Compliance and Enforcement within 48 hours of receiving the violation notice. So it means that within 48 hours, your team must be able to determine whether the appeal will stand against you or whether you want to appeal. I mean, whether the violation will stand against you or whether you want to appeal against it. After 48 hours, you can no longer appeal it. All appeals shall be submitted together with relevant evidences to help the Safety Committee on State Committee on Safety Ethics, Compliance and Enforcement, and the National Committee on Safety Ethics, Compliance and Enforcement immediately assess and determine the merits of the appeal. Where the appeal is valid and the violation is withdrawn, the individual or corporate entity shall not be liable to the penalty previously issued against them. Where a facility is closed due to violation which was deemed to pose immediate serious danger to life, the facility shall remain closed until the appeal is determined. So it means that ISPON will not reopen that facility simply because you have appealed against the violation. No, the appeal will be considered, the appeal will be determined. And once you have advantage in the appeal will be, the violation will be overturned and your facility will be reopened. But in the course of the appeal, that violation will be closed. If the initial decision has remained as stated that it should be closed, it will remain closed until the appeal is determined. Ladies and gentlemen, have been able to run through a summary of the ISPON Regulations I, 2024. That's the general provision for safety management in Nigeria. This is just what we're able to cover this evening. It's already 7:28, about an hour, 30 minutes since we started this session. I want to say thank you so much for taking your time to stay connected, listen to us, and then we look forward to your questions and answers at this point. So if you have questions, I will now unmute the mics for you to be able to share your questions, comments. It doesn't have to be questions, including comments. But before we do that, I will take time this time around to properly recognize some very important people in this session. The president of the Institute, Engineer Timothy Iwagu, is connected. President, sir, I am sorry I was not looking at the list of participants. I did not know when you joined. I will have immediately recognized you. Please forgive me for that, sir. Before I do any other thing further, I would like to give the audience to the president of the Institute to address us briefly. President, sir, do you want to talk to us now or you want us to take the question and answer first? Good evening, sir.
So while you wait for good evening, everybody participating in this presentation, this technical presentation, this awareness and enlightenment presentation. I want to salute all those who have been able to be engaged this evening. And I want to appreciate all the branch coordinators, the governing board members, the individual members from different branches of the Institute, and the non-members, because this is not restricted to members only, to non-members too. I want to ask that our English jingle be played, because it is very much consistent. I don't know if the River State Coordinator will be able to play it at this point, so that let it be played for the first time to our people, the English version. The other versions have been on to some people. So please see if you can Maybe you can play it.
Okay, Mr. President, I'm currently checking that out.
On your WhatsApp, can you put it on? Is it possible we can listen to it?
Yes, sir. If you give me a few minutes, maybe while the questions or comments are coming, we also have some board members here if they want to say hello to us.
Yes,
and we have
yes.
The registrar and state coordinators. So maybe while we take that interaction, I can set the jingles for us to listen to. President, sir, you may continue, sir.
Yes, I want to say here that the journey so far has been very impressive and interesting. It has been very tasking, and the ISPON governing board is equal to the task. The issue of compliance and its importance cannot be overemphasized. The Institute is a statutory body established to regulate safety management in both the public and private sectors of the economy of Federal Republic of Nigeria. And so the need for compliance arises from only that. Somebody wants to ask a question. Can you give him chance to ask? If we're not getting from some of the board members can still talk along the line. Somebody is indicating he has a question. Can you attend to him?
Yes, please. If you have questions, I'm looking for the person. I've not seen the person indicated.
Richard by name.
Okay, Richard, please unmute yourself and ask your questions or share your thoughts. Thank you, President, sir. Richard, please unmute yourself. And Ubong, I don't know if it is, this is Dr. Ubong. If
Okay,
Dr. Ubong,
let Dr. Ubong talk. If Richard is shy, I don't know.
No, maybe he's having technical glitch.
Okay.
I think this is Dr. Ubong. Dr. Ubong, you may please continue, sir. Do we have challenges on muting ourselves?
I don't know. I guess so.
Okay, let me check. All right. So we will please maintain the orderliness as we have maintained. Everybody will be able to unmute themselves at this point, but please let's speak one at a time so that we can have the information correctly passed.
Richard said he's having.
Yes, that has been addressed, President, sir. Richard, you may continue to speak. After that, we have Ubong, and then we have Felix Dimua. In that order, please.
Good evening, everyone in the house.
Good evening, sir.
Yes. Thank you very much. And then I very much grateful for the person who sent me the link. I don't know who the person was, but somebody dropped in my inbox yesterday, and I decided to be here today. So my question is this, since 2014, this regulation has been in place, but the implementation has not actually taken effect in so many states. Like in my own state, Kogi State, in Ondo State where I am presently and where I worked. What has actually held the processes of implementing this to take effect all these years? And then presently, there are many companies, like even the companies that operated here, many of them don't even have safety officers, nothing like safety culture, and then we are working virtually like a modern slavery work. What has actually delayed these processes? And ISPON Institute is actually training personnel. And then what will be their fate at the end of the day after engaging in the training and then not having a place to work, because even companies are not recruiting safety officers. what will be the gain of gaining this knowledge and the certification at the end of the day? That is my question, sir.
Thank you so much, sir. President, do you want to respond? I should go ahead, sir. President, sir.
Okay. Am I audible now?
Yes, very audible, sir.
Yes. Mr. Felix, I want to say here that the fact that a lot of companies in Nigeria across the geopolitical zones have been operating without a safety professional. In the course of this presentation, we have made sure that the definition, safety professional, the word, the description of a safety professional is made very explicit. So a safety professional is not the one who did general HSE and level 3. There's one slogan that you hear everywhere. Say, I want to do level 1, 2, 3. I want to do level 1, 2, 3. And it has become almost a song. Level 1, level 2 is meant for non-graduates. People with school cert, people with or OND, national diploma, and general HSE is the certificate we give to a graduate who is coming for the first time to get training in health, safety, and environment. Then, if he's interested in becoming a safety professional, he will go on to do HSE level 3. A lot of companies are employing people with HSE level 3 and general HSE, which is actually nothing so bad, but they must not be addressed as safety professionals. If the compliance team visits a company and discovers that the person who is called the safety supervisor in a company has general HSE and level 3, that company is going to be regarded as defaulted in this regard. And we want everybody to follow up this issue. This is Nigeria's own local content. A lot of people will ask, is ISPON recognized internationally? And sometimes I will ask them, are you existing internationally? You as a person, are you in an international place? Can you also ask if Nigeria is recognized by United Nations? Or if Nigerian passport can also be accepted for you to fly out of Nigeria? There are some questions that are very, very odd at this point of our civilization. Now, we have companies all over the place having facility managers, facility supervisors acting as safety professionals. That is wrong. That is unacceptable. We want a situation where everybody will start understanding. Like Mr. Felix said, the Institute had been, this regulation has been there since 2014. This regulation has not been there since 2014. The Act has been there since 2014. This regulation came up within this administration of the Institute, not because it actually started, but we have been putting the pieces together over the years, and we had to come up with the final work in 2024. And that is why you are having it. And we are putting a whole lot of things into enforcement. We have to move away from emphasis on general HSE level 3 or level 1, level 2. The training is ongoing, but I want to let you know that even advancement from graduate level to associate level will require some very serious examination to be sure that when a company employs our member, that member can stand and defend himself. So that question of what is the benefit? Now, what will be the benefit to the institute if somebody who is unserious is given membership? Because the benefit of learning is knowledge. And nobody can claim to have learned anything if what he has learned cannot show in his behavior, in his demonstration. You must see that learning, that knowledge. So it's just like saying, what's the benefit of going to university? Some of us read courses. Some people went to university for 5 years and they came back, remain unemployed, not because there's no job out there. Most of them have been failing in interviews. Anything you know how to do, do it well. And that will speak for you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, Mr. President.
Yes, I mean, can you, I know somebody is, okay, this is the person who just asked better. Can you play that jingle? It has to do with our enforcement.
Yes, let me play it now.
Yes, so that the next person will follow. Hello, I'm Engineer Timothy Iwagu, the National President of Institute of Safety Professionals of Nigeria, ISPON. Did you know it is illegal to practice as a safety professional without being registered with ISPON? Yes, it is. So, if you are a safety professional who is passionate about creating a safer Nigeria, register with ISPON today. You will gain access to professional development opportunities, networking, and up-to-date industry best practices. In the same vein, individuals and corporate organizations should ensure they verify every ISPON certificate presented to them. Also, watch out for scammers and forgers who use the name of the institute to offer training and issue fake certificates. For more information, visit www.ispon.gov.ng or call 0806 031 4610.
Institute of Safety Professionals of Nigeria. Everything we do is to keep everybody safe. It's fun. Everybody safe. It's fun.
Yes, President, sir, I don't know if the audio was clear enough.
Yeah, I think it's just the volume here on my end. I'm sure everybody heard it. So let's go on with questions. We're putting those jingles at intervals.
Yeah, President, I'm trying to confirm if the Ubong here is the Ubong who is our governing board member. I would have given him a preference.
I suppose that's our esteemed board member.
Okay,
if he's
sir.
Still around.
Yeah, he's still around.
Yes, let's hear from him.
Dr. Ubong, please, can you unmute yourself? Good evening, sir.
All right, good evening, Mr. Yinka. This is a different Ubong, not the one you
thank you.
Yeah.
Maybe one day you'll be an ISPON governing board member.
Yes. All right, thank you very much for the great presentation. My name is Ubong Ekong. Okay, my concern is about the membership you talk about, that one of these days ISPON may start maybe compliance going to companies to check competency and all that. So my own concern is that in 2022, I attended the annual conference of ISPON, though it was virtual, and I paid for the certificate, but up till now, it has not been issued. And then when I make some inquiries, I was told that during the meeting that the then president had to increase the price for those that did not attend physically. So I also made my case that during that time, my company was not able to release all the safety officers or safety employees to the conference. Those some attended physically, but we were asked to attend virtually, which we did, and we paid for the certificate. But up till now, I've not gotten my certificate for the membership because I was told that there was an increase during the meeting for those that did not attend physically. So for me, I think that was not fair because it was not deliberated initially for us to pay, but this thing just came up after we've made the payment. So I don't know what this fund board can do concerning that. Up to now, I've not gotten my certificate.
President, sir, if I have your permission, I would like to respond to Ubong because I am very much aware of the process.
Yes.
In fact, it came from my branch. Thank you for the opportunity, sir. Thank you, Mr. Ubong, for your patience and understanding. I know we'll be talking about it all this while. You see, ISPON is improving day by day, and we are glad that we have been able to get to this height today. The issue, we didn't hide it from you. We had an issue with the last administration because they brought up some policies which were not able to manage with the industry stakeholders. But I can tell you now, your certificate is part of the ones that the current president, Engineer Timothy Wago, has signed. And we have your certificate with us, waiting for induction so that we can release that for you. And then with the consent of the president, we are also planning to do an induction so that we can clear all the certificates before the end of this year, whether physically or virtually. So I'm telling you that as state coordinators, I am in custody of your certificate here in Rivers State, and you'll be communicated properly. And that applies to a lot of persons who have that similar issue. One thing or the other that has delayed your certification process, but most of them have been sorted out, if not all of them already. Thank you so much for your understanding. Can we have who's next? Okay, Mr. Issa Dennis. Oh, sorry. Before Issa Dennis, please. Can we have Lee? I have your name before. Lady. Is it? Forgive me if I'm not pronouncing it. Dilma or Dimwa Felix. Please submit yourself. Dilma Felix.
Good evening. Good
Evening,
evening,
sir.
everyone. Good evening, Mr. President. Thank you, Mr. Yinka, for. Can you hear me now?
Very well.
Am I
You're audible.
Thank you for this opportunity, and very grateful for this session. So I have 3 questions if I am permitted to ask these questions because of time, but let me go first for number 1. For instance, a member of ISPON trained and certified as a HSC with HSC level 3, and let's say I was employed in a company as a project engineer or a site engineer, not as a safety officer specifically. And another person is now being employed as a safety officer in that same organization, let's say for a particular project, or let's say for the organization in general, is employed as a safety officer, which take care of the safety
Responsibilities.
practices. So I want to know how does my position as a project engineer or site engineer in conjunction as a trained and certified safety officer with ISPON now directly affects or interfere the duties of this safety officer being employed by my organization. I want to know how may my position or knowledge or skill as a safety officer with ISPON directly, how may it affect the duty of this safety officer being employed by the company? I remember that my employment, I'm being employed as a project engineer or a site engineer, not clearly as a safety officer.
Okay.
Then my second question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, my second question. I want to know what role does an HSC's safety officer with, let's say, level 3, what role or function does it or will he have in the safety management, if not as a safety supervisor? Thank you.
Okay.
I think I will go with this too.
All right. I think I'll just quickly respond to that. When I made the presentation, I talked about hierarchies in safety management and stuff like that. Um,
I
First, we will
November
agree
20.
that making the workplace safe requires a collaborative effort. We all need to work together. Now, you being a project engineer and being somebody who is trained and certified, competent on your job does not have a negative impact. Richard, please mute your mic. Does not have a negative impact on the other person who is employed to have safety responsibility. Richard, please
I
mute your
told
mic. Richard, mute your mic. All right. Sorry for that distraction. So the person has primary responsibility for safety. You have primary responsibility for the operation. You are facing different angles, but you work in the same system where you must work together to make the job safe. So while he's doing his job, if he needs your support because you have the competency, you should provide that support for him, and vice versa. So it is not a kind of a parasitic relationship we have on the job. It is a symbiotic relationship where you contribute, he contributes. Being a safety person on the job does not mean he is the best when it comes to safety. You on the project engineer, as project engineer, may also have insights that can help him deliver his job and make everybody safe. If you have that, please feel free to share. Secondly, we talked about the HSE level 3. Before this regulation came up, in the institute, we have always said that the safety HSE level 3 is designed for safety supervisors. Yes, that has not changed. But what has changed now is how we now use the certificate. If the person that is holding the safety HS level 3 desires to now work as safety supervisor, it means that he must now have become a member of the institute. Not being a member, you have the competence to work within that scope of that certification, but you don't have the legal requirement, so you will not be employed in that office. You can be a safety practitioner, you can provide support within your experience and competence, but you cannot fit in by legal requirement, by these provisions, you cannot fit in now, even though you have the competence. The same thing if you know how to draw the whole drawings in engineering designs. If you are not a registered engineer, you can still not be recognized as an engineer. I don't know if that clarifies that. We'll take the third person now because of time. And I will take
Thank you.
Issa Dennis. Thank you. Issa Dennis, please.
Yeah, good evening, sir.
Good evening, sir.
Mr. President, good evening. My question is regarding that's as I was given an awareness on this ISPON and during when I was serving in the camp. So for corpus, so I happened to pay money for a training, and then the whole program I was not able to be enrolled. So I contacted someone in Maiduguri, which happens to be Mr. Suleiman Dankwali, and then I was not opportune to get a reasonable feedback for the training. So I paid money for the program, and then when I was visiting the website again, I saw some updates regarding on the website again. So I don't know how the organization is going to handle this case. For those that paid money and then I was not able to be trained or registered, and then I cannot get my money back, and then I don't know what to do again.
All right, thank you. The institute now has been able to resolve that for you. Why you didn't get your training in Meduguri was because we didn't have a branch for training in Meduguri then. But we have made the training available online now for people like you are who are in locations where physical trainings are not accessible. Please visit. You can contact Alaji Dankole after this meeting. Then he will give you information how to get your training online or virtually. By the way, Alaji Dankole is one of the governing board members of the institute. So he has the authority to give you directives and directions or information how to go about that. But your money is safe with the institute. Just contact him again and he will advise you, particularly to do your training online. But it's at your discretion as well. If you want to travel to nearby locations, just check the ISPON website, ispon.gov.ng, so that I can see the nearest location for you in case you desire physical training for you to be trained. But either physically or virtually, now your training can be done. So because of time, I want to seek the consent of the president to just take 2 more questions. And after that, we take the comments from governing board members who are in this session. The registrar is still waiting, and state coordinators on ground. I can see Mrs. Karunwi Bolajoko. I can see Alaji Dankole, and so on and so forth. So, President, sir, just after 2 questions, we'll just take those our very distinguished officials, and we'll call the session a quit for today. All right, so I'll call on Oluwaseun Olayinka, and after that, we'll take the last one as Folami Timothy. I'm sorry, Izuegbo, you came after these people have raised their hands. Felix Dimua, your hand is still raised, but you have already spoken. So we'll just take it in that order. If the questions are short, we can take the remaining 3 questions. Please, let's go in that order, and we will be getting close to the end of the session. Oluwaseun, please, Olayinka. If you are still there and your question has not been answered, please go ahead.
Good evening, Mr. Anka. Thank you for the opportunity given, and really appreciate the presentation, very clear and comprehensive. We've spoken about the issue about being a safety supervisor in an organization and the legal requirement about that. And all that's being said, we would like to ask a direct question. I believe maybe it has been addressed because of the presentation, but at some point I was not online because I had to get some things done. I'm on duty presently. So I would like you to address what are the steps one needs to take to become a certified member of ISPON, and if there are payments, maybe there are exams to be written and all those necessary other things that needs to be done.
Mr. President, sir, would you want to take that? Vice President.
I didn't get his last 2 sentences.
Okay, sir. He was asking for the steps to be taken if somebody wants to become a safety professional, in summary, whether there are fees, whether there are exams, and so on and so forth.
There are exams. Apart from the general HSE and HSE level 3, there are exams for persons coming for membership. The institute has that prerogative to look at certain other factors like your experience. And if you feel that some people are very experienced and have been practicing for years, but against the law. But the law says your name must be in the register of the institute for you to be a safety professional. And when we say the register of the institute, we mean the register of the institute, not the register of area boys under one bridge in Lagos. There are a lot of criminal elements. There are a lot of imposters using the name ISPON to defraud people. And it's very sad too, that most of those being defrauded are knowledgeable and educated persons, mostly graduates. And the question now is, why can't they do due diligence before taking action, especially parting with money? So this is an opportunity to say it and say it clear enough. Whatever answer you get here, let it go down to other people. Don't keep it to yourself. you do exam. If you don't want to do exam and you have been practicing for years, then we can grant you exemption. There's a fee for exemption. But that exemption does not exempt you from doing general HSE and level 3 if you are a graduate. There are quite some exceptions where you have somebody who is not a graduate, but with immense professional experience. The institute can decide on such special cases. We have said it over and over. General HSE level 3 is just the gateway to qualifying you to apply for professional membership. Those things are not what you show to anybody and say you are a safety professional. I didn't want to bring it into this program this evening. We're going to have one or two of these before the year ends. But I want to let you know that we have not less than 10 certificates from NNPC, not less than 6 from the upstream, downstream oil and gas company. Then we also have very recently a good number of certificates from Nigerian Port Authority, from the MD of NPA. That's a few days ago. So companies like the refinery at Ekma Express in Warri, they send in certificates, and sometimes they send certificates of general HSE and level 3 of people who claim to be safety professionals. And we said these are not even safety persons. Doesn't mean that if you pass JAM, that makes you an undergraduate. You've not gotten even an admission into the university. It doesn't mean that if you have been offered an admission into university, that makes you a graduate in advance. You must still fulfill all the requirements before you can graduate in any discipline. So these things, we need to understand them and understand them very well. I have seen a question here too that says, what of somebody who has level 1, 2, 3 from other organizations? I want to tell you that there is no other organization that is a substitute for ISPON. In 2015, we met the Minister for Labor, Dr. Chris Ngige, in his office. ISPON team made up of the coordinators and board members met the minister, and some persons in that ministry tried to be mischievous by telling the minister that he should be careful about ISPON, that ISPON will become too powerful if they don't allow other bodies. And the minister asked these persons to mention those bodies and keep on his table, right as we were all seated, they should put on that desk the law that recognized or established such bodies and what makes them an alternative or parallel bodies with ISPON. So we have a lot of people who act with real mischievous intentions. In 2015, that same year, at Federal Palace Hotel, Amadou Bello Way in Lagos, Victoria Island, a grown-up person, a Nigerian citizen, a graduate, was asking the president of then American Society of Safety Engineers, now American Society of Safety Professionals. This Nigerian citizen, adult, asked the president of American Society, what is he and his society doing about enforcement of safety compliance in Nigeria? And the man was embarrassed. And the man asked him whether he is aware of the existence of ISPON, that question is not for an American body. No other body can take the place of ISPON in Federal Republic of Nigeria. And I want this to be taken home so that we'll stop asking this type of questions. Some of the questions are asked by people who are not even qualified to become safety professionals, but they just want to create issues. But we are not worried. We need more questions. We don't consider any questions as stupid, but we must answer the questions.
Thank you, sir, Mr. President. We are far behind our schedules now, but we must take the last question that we have promised to take. That's from Folami Timothy. And after that, we'll take brief comment from the governing board members who are still connected, the registrar of the institute, and state officials who are still connected. Thank you. Please, Folami, just in less than 1 minute, 30 seconds.
Good afternoon. My president of ISPON here on this platform. I'm from Central Bank of Nigeria.
Try and be audible. Try and make yourself audible. Don't be far from.
Sir. Okay, sir. I'm from Central Bank of Nigeria. I head the safety unit in Lagos here. You know, it was my curiosity about the safety aspect of it that really made me to know more about ISPON, and I did a lot of research about the ISPON and others, and I discovered that ISPON is the only registered, only recognized institute of safety in Nigeria. So, President, sir, I want you to please help us. At least, I want some of my colleagues also to see how they can benefit from some of the trainings, and so that we can be also be a qualified safety officer. Just as I mentioned, I'm the one that held the unit here in Lagos. Most of my colleagues, they are not too familiar with.
Don't be far from your mic.
Okay, sir. Can you hear me, sir?
Yeah.
So I'm just trying to see what I want to see the calendar for 2025 and to see how we, the central bank, can see how to come in as regards to this safety institute, sir.
Okay. The central bank in Lagos. Where's your office? Around Satellite Town?
No, around Tinubu Square.
Okay, Tinubu Square.
Yes, sir. Tinubu Square.
Yes, I know. I led the ISPON team that visited the central bank headquarters in Abuja, and we did a whole lot of talk, and they didn't follow up. They didn't come back. They didn't call us. And we also made it very clear that it is wrong to operate without certified safety personnel. Even when the central bank told us they have safety department, we gave a proposal, well-written proposal, and no response. But I'm very impressed that you had the patience to be with us in this evening. And we can get you some information, but you see, when you tell groups like Central Bank Even if you give them the timetable for this century, they will tell you what of the one of the next century. So what we do is we allow you. Hello, are you hearing me?
Yes, sir.
So if we give you any information of timetable or program, that will not solve the problem. What we want you as the head of safety in the central bank here in Lagos, you propose to your organization that you want to do training for your safety department staff, and if they agree that you can do that, you fix your own date, your timing, as it suits your purpose, and communicate them to us. We do not have specific date for corporate groups. The corporate groups just tell us that they need it. We give them because the Act says we should regulate in collaboration with relevant agencies of government. The central bank is an agency of government, and then they are supposed to be working closely with us. There are quite a lot of things we are supposed to have with the central bank. So that is what I would tell you. Get your people together, talk with your management, and if they have accepted that people should be trained, you get us the numbers, and then we agree on date, a mutually convenient date, and it will be delivered. And the institute can as well be in central bank location to give that training.
Thank you, sir, Mr. President. So at this juncture, we have drawn the curtain on questions, answers, and comments. I will just take remarks from the ISPON officials who are still connected. I am not in any position to be able to give directives on how many minutes governing board members and registrars or my colleagues as state coordinators should speak, but I want to plead for the sake of time that we take about 1 minute to say one or two things to us, and then we go back to have a peaceful and a safe night. So in no particular order, I would like to, let me look at it.
Okay.
Yes, the registrar, please, Dr. Mrs. Esther Williams.
Thank you for participating in this program. My name is Dr. Esther Williams, the registrar of the Institute. I appreciate everyone for finding out time to attend this training. At least we have awareness about the ISPON regulation. But there is something, there's a remark when I go through the remarks on this on the chat. Someone is talking about unrepentant ISPON. I want to say that ISPON is only one, and the only recognized ISPON is ISPON www.ispon.gov.ng. That is the ISPON that the federal government recognizes. So there's nothing like ISPON United or ISPON. We've withdrawn. We did say we are no longer part of that exercise. And any exercise with an illegal group is an illegality. So we are not part of that, and I don't expect anyone in this group to make such a statement. So you've heard everything from the registration, and I want to appeal to you that whenever we have trainings like this, just come and get more information. Thank you, and God bless you for attending the program. Thank you.
Thank you so much, our very distinguished registrar, Dr. Mrs. Esther Williams. I also call on Alaji Dankoli to give us a comment. Alaji Dankole is one of our governing board members. Alaji Suleiman Dankole, please. Can you unmute yourself, sir? Alhaji Dankole, are you able to unmute yourself?
Yes, I was able to.
Thank you, sir.
Good evening, everyone. Mr. President, the registrar and governing board members, other institute members, you are all welcome. Thank you very much, Yinka, for this wonderful elaboration of the ISPON regulation. It was very insightful and straightforward. I think if you look at the questions written, you see people are asking for either the recorded version of the presentation to be sent to their mails. If that can be done, I think everybody will be happy.
Thank you so much,
And,
sir. Surely the session is recorded. Yes. Yes, sir. Alhaji, are you done, sir?
All right, I wish everyone. Yes, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir, for the feedback. So the session is recorded, and once we get the recorded version, we'll make it available on ISPON, Facebook, and other social media platforms. We may not be able to share with you by email because we did not collect your email in this session. But what you can do, okay, we will share the contact information of the institute once again. Oh, now just go to the institute website, www.ispon.gov.ng. Now use the contact information to request a copy of this recorded version. While we'll make it available publicly, but if you make a request, we'll also send it to you as well. Thank you so much. Okay. All right. Mrs. Karonwe Bola Joko, good evening. Our state coordinator for Ogun State. Can you please unmute yourself? Madam Bola Joko.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening. Who's that?
Yeah, good evening.
Thank you for your time, everyone. It has been an insightful section. We hope we'll have more of this next year. And since Mr. Yinka said the recorded version will be available, we need that so that we can post that and people can get more educated with all this information. And I believe it will answer so many questions, many people with curiosity regarding responsibility with ISPON. Thank you so much, Mr. Yinka. It was a wonderful one. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, Madam Karonwe Bola Joko, our state coordinator for Ogun State. I'm looking for other officials. Maybe they have disconnected. Yes, Mr. Ita Benson, you spoke to us earlier in the session, but now this is your turn again to say hello to us before we close.
I'm still here.
Yes.
Yes,
Go ahead, sir.
yes. I have to say something. Good evening, professional colleagues. I need to put my video so that my people can see my face. This is something ISPON has been. I've been looking forward to happen in ISPON, trying to communicate awareness and trying to let people know and align with the objective of the institute. Over time, we have been trying our best, but I think this is the first time we are really doing what we have been mandated to do for our dear country, Nigeria, and for advancing the safety management and practice in Nigeria. I really admire the question people are coming up with and the professional answers that has been given. I still want to continually to charge us that ISPON is still ISPON. There is nothing like ISPON A, ISPON B. And all safety professionals should live with the obligation of being a member of the institute. We will continue to drive safety management in Nigeria until we actually get to where we are expected to get to. And I want to commend the effort of my colleague, Olayinka, and the national president and other members of the governing board. I want to assure you that our Akwa Ibom State branch shall continually align its program and processes in place to ensure that we advance and improve safety management in Nigeria. Thank you so very much. And God bless each and every one of us.
Thank you, Mr. Ita Benson, Akwa Ibom State Coordinator. I've looked through the chat, though I am unable to identify some of the participants. So if you are an ISPON official and we have not recognized you properly, please accept our sincere apologies for that. It is not deliberate. It's just for our inability to pick you directly from the participants. Please forgive us. We respect your offices and we want to assure you that your positions will never be taken for granted. So before I hand over to the president to close us and give us a closing remark and end the session, Olayinka Fashion is my name, State Coordinator, Rivers State branch. I want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak today. The president, the governing board, the registrar, my colleagues at the state level, and my professional colleagues in the industry. Thank you so much for this opportunity to share together and to promote the advancement of safety management in Nigeria. Together, we'll continue to drive this process until we fully achieve the purpose for establishing our institute. Once again, Olayinka Fashion is my name. And at this point, Mr. President, sir, I'll hand over to you.
Good evening, House. Inka Madrako Onyekachi is on the line, State Coordinator, Imo.
My apologies. I've been looking for you, actually. My apologies.
Yeah. I'm Kachi online.
Please forgive me,
Onyekachi. Madrako
Please forgive me.
Onyekachi.
Let me first introduce you. You will now take the floor.
I've been online, Mr. Inka. Hussein Tahir from Kogi State.
Yes.
I raised up my hand. You didn't.
I think his apology is well noted because he said he couldn't identify most of us. You know, I think it's human. It's human. You know, I think more of this sensitization is something we should continue consistently. By doing this, we'll have to woo a lot of people to our side. Those who are recalcitrant, you know, because they are still undecided on which side of the divide they are. So I think by this continuous sensitization and awareness, you know, we'll come out stronger because there's this saying that says, in every dark cloud, there's always a silver lining. I think we are just at it. So consistent of this sensitization is well welcome. I doff my cap for the president and his team for coming up with this wonderful initiative. I pray for God's grace and wisdom to help us all, because together we stand, divided we fall. Together, I think we'll get, the sky will be our beginning. So I pray that this thing will continue, not just starting now. And secondly, there's this thing I find very difficult to comprehend amongst ourselves. Just like the engineers, the lawyers, the doctors, at every there's a level of certification or conferences they should attend in a year before they get their licenses. I think such things should also be in place. We discovered that the lawyers, they pay certain kind of levies before they get their listing. But we discover most of us, we call ourselves safety officer. We find difficult to come for conferences. We even find difficult to come for free this thing, awareness meeting like this. And it doesn't really, it's not a good omen for us all. So I think things like this should also be put in place, at least to serve as having a standard for the institute. Thank you so much, and God bless you all.
Thank you so much, Mr. Kachi, for that wonderful contributions. That's our state coordinator, Imo State branch. And we also have to take the comment from our state coordinator, Kogi State branch, Mr. Hussein. Please forgive me that I missed you before. It was not intentional. Mr. Hosseini, please.
Thank you, Mr. Inka.
Thank you, sir.
Well, I really appreciate the wonderful presentation. And my comment is not much. I've been going through while the presentation was still ongoing. I've been going through the comment from participants, from attenders, and one which Dr. Esther actually responded to. But there's another one that is still here. Somebody is asking about the WHO, World Safety Organization. So I don't know why somebody will be still asking if WHO SO is not valid or not. What we are just saying here is that this is Nigeria. Whether World or Universal Safety Organization, it is world. As far as Nigeria is concerned, even if you are having a budget, you are supposed to be considered first for having ISPON certificate. Then neighbor should just be an added advantage. So I don't know if the, Mr. President or Registrar can respond to that. The issue about WHO and OSHA, if it's not valid agency anymore. Thank you very much. And another one is, there are some organizations that, especially in Kogi State here, organizations like Unikid, I don't know what they are hiding. We have been writing to them. We want to come as inspect. We want to come and see their safety officers. I even spoke with the MD, and he's a Lebanese, and he promised that he's going to call me back for us to come, which I informed Mr. President about. Well, for the past 2 months now, we have not heard from him, and he's not picking our call again. So I just want to notify the President that such organization, what can we do so that they will grant us access to interact with their safety team, because we have gone to a lot of organizations, even organizations as big as a Gilegu Power Plant. They grant us permission and we interact with them, and they see where we can come in the future. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you so
Yes,
much,
sorry. In
Mr.
addition to that,
Oops, okay.
in addition to what you've said, you see, most times when our medical doctors go abroad to practice, they are being subjected to exams to align them with what is obtainable there. So somebody who is having NEBOSH is alien to us here. Whoever is coming here to practice under is, sorry, I might be wrong, but I feel that person should be subjected to our own standard. NEBOSH is alien to us.
That's what the
So
law
somebody
says.
who's having NEBOSH and wants, pardon?
I said that's what the law says.
Yes. So whoever says he's practicing safety in Nigeria and has not gotten ISPON, I don't think that person has got. He should go to ISPON office and align himself. My cousin went abroad as a medical doctor. He was subjected to exams before he was able to practice. Thank you.
All right, thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I think we will first close the session here. Because of time, we've really kept people waiting, and it's not safe to keep them for this long time. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. As I hand over this process to ISPON to give us the closing remarks, I want to also use the opportunity to leverage on the mistake I made before when I did not acknowledge my colleagues. Husseini and Kachi, please, can you use the opportunity now to show me that you are forgiving me? I'll be expecting at least one Christmas chicken from the two of you. It's a way of showing that you
I
are
said it
forgiving me.
earlier. It's
We are
human that you're
forgiven, sir.
forgiven.
We are forgiven,
Yes.
sir.
I just need evidence. You know, we are doing audit, we'll look for evidence. All right, so
We'll
Mr. President,
be coming for our chicken. Can't be faster than us. We'll be coming for our chicken, Mr. Inka.
thank you so much, sir. Mr. President, please close us, and then we'll be going to rest for tonight.
This is very commendable. I want to appeal to every member to know that attendance of programs like this is very, very mandatory for competency and professional development of members. And I want to say here that certificates for this very training, this ISPON regulation, webinar presentation that we may consider giving out. I don't know if it is done. We'll notify everybody. At least we have attendance. Do we have our attendance of persons whose names appear? Do we?
President, sir, unfortunately, we didn't send out an attendance form for them to fill, but we would have been able to use the list we have here, only that some persons did not use their real names. So it will be difficult for us to issue certificates in this session. Maybe in the future sessions when we have another one, we can consider that with your permission, sir.
Okay, but I think we've got to a stage where we should be giving certificates for this, because anybody who has patiently listened cannot say he did not grab anything, and it's all about professional development, knowledge. You cannot say you are a Nigerian and they ask you how many states in Nigeria, and you say you don't know. They ask you your local government, you say you don't know. Every ISPON member belongs to a branch. Every ISPON member belongs to a branch. You don't belong to national. National is not a branch of ISPON. So anybody who has been part of the lawlessness of some criminal elements should not identify himself as ISPON, as far as the institute is concerned. And I want to appeal to us that those who are knowledgeable should act like knowledgeable people. All those who attended the illegal conference and absurdity called election in Abuja between 17th to 19th of October 2024, their names will be submitted to the board to take decision about their continuous appearance in the list of professional members of ISPON. So if anybody knows that his name was taken to that place against his will, should notify the institute. We've been seeing terrible behaviors of lawlessness. We've been seeing letters, we've been seeing things posted online, talking, even during the illegal gathering in Abuja, where some non-members of ISPON opened account with the name of ISPON and caused some people who are supposed to be knowledgeable to pay their money into such accounts. All such persons must account for their actions. And the institute is not pleading. I don't want to hear people say, we appeal to people to come back. Come back to where? A Nigerian who traveled to India, do you appeal to him to come back? If India is not suitable for him, he will come back. You don't appeal. There's an act and the regulation is there. And one of the regulations says requirement for becoming a safety professional includes to have a good character. So we cannot accommodate gross misconduct as part of the institute's acceptable norms. I want to appreciate us once again. Yinka, next time when we are having this type of thing, let it be very clear that certificates will be issued. And I want to also inform us here, should there be anyone who attended the conference and the special 10th anniversary training, compliance awareness development training, who has not gotten certificate of attendance should communicate accordingly so as to have their certificates. A few persons have contacted me recently and I told them what to do. Should any of them be in our midst tonight or this evening, please do not hesitate to identify yourself and get your certificate. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. President. So, ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the end of this technical session organized by the Institute of Safety Professionals of Nigeria. I want to thank you for staying for this long hour to make this a successful one for us. And in the coming year, we look forward to many more successful collaboration and experiences to make Nigeria safer and better. Please, it starts with you. We've been sitting for almost 2 hours plus now. I'll encourage us immediately after the session. Please do well to stretch yourself, take walk around before you go to bed so that you can revive yourself. You've been sitting for too long. Safety starts with us, and let's keep ourselves safe. And may the Almighty God continue to keep us safe in Jesus' name. Good night, everyone. Please stay safe and have a
Amen.
Merry
Good night.
Christmas and New Year in advance.
I wish you same.